Sam and Joku, host of the Ravens Talk podcast. Week 1 of free agency is in the books. Let's take a look at what we like and what we disliked.
And I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. And of course, there's still a long way to go in free agency. We'll look at what the Ravens still need to do because there's still a lot of great names out there. We'll talk about that and a lot more coming up on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
What is going on, Ravens flock? Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam and Joku, Kevin Oestreicher, and Kadri Ismail here with you talking Ravens football on a Monday evening. It is nice to get the first week of free agency in the books. We're inching closer and closer to the NFL draft. But before that, we would definitely touch on what has transpired in the first week of free agency. I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with a college basketball parlay profit boost. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. The Ravens got through week 1 of free agency, not without a little bit of drama, but notwithstanding, the Ravens still did make plenty of moves. We'll touch on what our grades are for the first week in free agency, early grades for that matter. We'll also talk about who the Ravens could still bring in. It's only been a week. Plenty of time for the Ravens to make their moves. You know, this is the time where the Ravens like to inch in and grab some depth pieces and really change the fabric of this roster inside and out. We also touch on other Ravens news as they progress throughout the show. Let's get into it because week 1 of free agency was crazy. Thought we had Maxx Crosby. Didn't come out that way. Obviously, the trade was next. We did bring in Trey Hendrickson. So we want to start there. Kevin, I'll start with you. No Maxx Crosby. We gave Trey Hendrickson. A little bit of drama unfolded with that. But all things considered, how would you grade this move here for the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, this is what I like to do because, again, there's so much context that you can kind of put into every single move. But I just want to, separate each move, separate it, and we just look at it in a vacuum. And Trey Hendrickson, this was a guy that we were all talking about over the course of the weeks leading up to free agency because we didn't think the Crosby trade was going to happen in the first place. So we were just kind of like, you're not going to trade for Crosby and you want to do something. You don't want to just kind of stick to the status quo here. Hendrickson was perfect. And I still believe that this move is a perfect medium where, again, regardless of what happened with Crosby, we're not talking about that right now. Hendrickson himself is one of the best pure pass rushers in the league. Now, I'm not sure how often you want him out there on rundowns, but you don't need him. I mean, you have guys like Tavius Robinson. You can filter guys in. They needed somebody who could close. And that's what Jesse Minter was talking about in a lot of different areas of look, Trey Hendrickson, fourth quarter, he's a god in the fourth quarter. He is incredible. And he's someone that can give you that production and is someone that can be the guy for you because we talked about this for years. It's like the Bengals have their guy in Hendrickson and the Steelers have their guy in TJ Watt and the Browns have their guy in Myles Garrett. Who do the Ravens have? They've had guys that have been good and pretty good for them at times, but really since Terrell Suggs and Elvis Dumerville and that duo, I mean, there really hasn't been a guy that you can say that's an elite, franchise type of pass rusher. Hendrickson gives you that. Yes, he's a little older than Crosby. Yes, he's probably not the best all-around player between the two. But I still think in hearing him speak, the fact that he's so motivated, it feels like to play Cincinnati twice a season, which gives me a lot of it's excitement with me because I'm loving what he's saying in that regard. But also, and I mentioned this on Locked On Ravens PM, he knows what AFC North football is like. And I think that's an underrated aspect of it where, again, it's not everybody, but some people do struggle to adjust to the AFC North physicality of it if you just don't play in it enough. And if you don't know what the stakes are and what it means. And I mean, I don't think that's the difference between winning and losing a Super Bowl, but it does help. And especially when you've played against Pittsburgh for a while, you've played against Cleveland for a while. Obviously you have the inside track on Cincinnati as well. I mean, if it wasn't Hendrickson, I don't know who it was going to be. And, I get all the optic situations with Crosby. Oh, they backed out of Crosby and then immediately go sign Hendrickson. I mean, what do you want them to do? You want them to make their football team worse by not getting the guy who clearly is the best player remaining on the market? We'll probably never get the full truth on that Crosby situation one way or the other, Raiders, Ravens, whatever it may be. Everybody's going to try to make their side of the story look the best. But I think that Hendrickson was, again, like we talked about for weeks leading up to this, the perfect medium between a big swing with the Crosby trade where you give up those picks and doing nothing and bringing in just your, veteran 35-year-old pass rusher.
It kind of reminds me of Devonta Freeman when he came walking through those doors as a running back.
Get better, because that Devonta Freeman was one of the best running backs in Ravens history. Don't you forget it. Don't you forget it.
I think the big thing for me, similar to what KO is saying, is that when you look at the AFC North, you needed to have that closer, and I've seen it up close and personal where TJ Watt would just take over the game. You needed a critical sack, you needed a critical turnover, and he would provide it. Renegade would play, and then all of a sudden it's like mother of pearl. Here we go. TJ Watt does his thing. Myles Garrett is just Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett could take over the game in the doggone first quarter if he wanted to in the first drive, or in the fourth quarter in the most critical of drive. It just didn't matter. I mean, he's just that good. I think both places and Cincinnati, where you did have Trey Hendrickson, they had that je ne sais quoi that the Ravens lacked so desperately last year. And with the free agency, yes, we talked about it. Yes, we went into detail about it, that we didn't want technically. I didn't think we would get Maxx Crosby because of his injury history. And yes, I was happy that they got him. So I'm not going to act like, oh, well, now that you're, looking back on it, you can. Nope. I was adamant that I don't think we're going to get him, but I was sure the heck saying, okay, we got him. What's up? But then I was like, oh, well, wait, what? We don't have him. And it's because of the injuries? Okay, well, now what do you do? So the fact that the now what do you do turned into Trey Hendrickson, still keep your first round picks. You're not a team from a big picture standpoint that likes to make a big splash to begin with. But then all of a sudden you had to make a big splash, go away from what you thought you were going to do because it wasn't working. And yeah, Jesse Minter and company, Anthony Weaver, Weave is probably sitting there like, bruh, is this the same Ravens that I left before? Like, holy moly, this is good stuff here. So while I am not full on EDC, as the peeps now know, it's all about E as in Eric. I will give him his pronunciation of Eric. Eric, okay, good. Now, are we grading Eric? We'll say grade-wise, Eric. You have your first-round picks back, Eric. You kind of flubbed it up and made us the villain, which could work in our favor, Eric. And I believe that, you kind of did a little CIA corniness that you typically do with the, oh, gosh, I'm gutted, Eric. I'll say, okay, in your guttedness, did you gut him as in said your goodbyes and let him go back on the private plane? Or did you just give him a first-class ticket with his family and was like, okay, goodbye, we'll see you later. We ain't going to be playing y'all anyway because your team is not even going to make the playoffs. You was talking, see, Eric was talking smack to his boys, talking about we ain't going to see you because you ain't going to make the playoffs. So I don't even know why we even worried about you. We don't even play the AFC West. So you might not even be on the team. I mean, perhaps the Dallas Cowboys might claim you, but who even knows about that? Because they let Micah Parsons go, and who even knows, Eric? I'm just going to say this. Well done. I gave you a little love off of all that. Well done. If I had to give you a letter grade, are we giving letter grades? I don't even know if I want to give him a letter grade. In fact, you know what? I'm being defiant like Devonta Freeman was. Wow. I'm not giving him a letter grade tonight. I'm just going to say, well done, Eric, for now. And then we'll see how the rest of this early phase, because free agency is still in this early infancy stage. You re-signed, or at least you guaranteed. Am I off base with this, fellas, when I say that, Roquan got his bonus, Marlon got his bonus. So some dudes that we thought, at least I know I said it, that Eric, when he was was going to be doing some contract restructuring, but he didn't. And so, okay, two of the dudes that I thought at least would get the contract restructured didn't. I ain't tripping. But at the same time, bigger picture-wise, I think so far so good. Because why? You signed Chidobe Awuzie. Because Cheeto is back in the building, I feel better about this whole thing, and we're moving on.
Incredible. Early Q rant. The chat loves it. It is fantastic. I agree with you completely. I think it was a great move. I think it was a move they had to make. The pivot was necessary. As Kevin said, what do you expect the Ravens to do? To sit back and be a worse football team because they don't trust whatever it is that they saw like Maxx Crosby. So I love it. I think it's also an addition by subtraction. The Bengals don't have a pass rusher right now. I mean, maybe they have, I can't even remember the rookie that they had last year that came in and didn't look that great, but they need themselves the premier pass rusher now. So they're not looking that great either. And the Ravens get their guy finally since they, some people say since Terrell Suggs. Some people also say since Matt Judon. I think they really needed somebody since Terrell Suggs to come in there and be that guy. And I think that they have it right now with Trey Hendrickson. Let's move on to another free agent signing. Daniel Faalele didn't look too hot last year. I think that's an understatement of the decade. But they did try and recoup some offensive line talent by bringing back a guy by the name of John Simpson, a guy that we all remember from his time here in Baltimore a few years ago. Not the huge uber all-pro guard that some people may want in the building, but definitely an upgrade over Daniel Faalele. Not very difficult to do. How would you grade this, Kevin? Daniel Faalele's replacement, perhaps being John Simpson.
Man, I have to recover for a second. You said another free agent signing, and you said Daniel Faalele after that. My heart's saying, I'm like, oh, did I miss something here? Like, oh, wait.
I'm about to say we back to saying Eric as opposed to Eric if we talk about some Faalele. Goodness.
Yeah, it was a good 5 minutes of it being Eric for Q there. But
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was not expecting Simpson to get the deal that he got. I was more so looking at guys like Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, Kevin Zeitler. I've mentioned that plenty of times here over the last week or so. But, Simpson was clearly a guy that they liked back in 2023. They brought him in. He was essentially on the last legs of his career. I mean, I think they signed him. It was a practice squad deal, and then he got promoted to the active roster, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was a futures thing even. I can't even remember. But it was like a very much like a we'll take a flyer on you type of situation. But then he ended up winning a roster spot, winning a starting job, and, really outperforming the value of what the Ravens got him for. But the problem with Simpson has been penalties, and, sometimes he can get really caught up. I think he was one of the league leaders when he was in Baltimore alongside Ronnie Stanley in that 2023 season. That was one of the infamous penalty years for Baltimore, and there have been plenty of those. But at the end of the day, he's better than what they had. I think that's a start. How much better? I think that remains to be seen. But one of the interesting things is Eric DeCosta went on 105.7 The Fan with Cordell Woodland and Ben Hall, and they did a great job interviewing him, asking a ton of questions. And one of the things that Eric DeCosta said, and I actually talked about that this morning on Locked On Ravens, is the fact that they really like Simpson's physicality, the tenacity he plays with, and just the mean streak, essentially, is what I was gathering that Simpson plays with. And he does play with that type of mean streak, that bully football. And I think the Ravens need that mentality on all sides of the ball. Like they've just lost that identity to me. When the Ravens were at their best, and you can even talk about that 2023 team on defense specifically. I mean, that was a defense that was just bullying you every single snap. And even when you're talking about some of the nasty offensive linemen, like, I don't know the last true nasty offensive lineman the Ravens have had. I mean, Ronnie has nasty moments. Maybe it's just Marshall Yanda consistently with how nasty he played. I mean, I'm trying to think of any other. I mean, I'm trying to think of who else play with that consistent nasty mean streak that Simpson does. So that aspect of it I like, but I am curious to see how he performs. And essentially the contract details came out, and instead of 3 for $30, it essentially is a 2-year, $20 million contract, because you can cut him after 2027 and you can get $10 million in savings against the cap, which they are undoubtedly going to do. So that makes the contract a little bit better. I like Simpson, but if I had to give it a grade, I'd just probably give it a C. It's kind of in the middle for me. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either.
Who was the guy that we had? He went to Tampa Bay and was Tom Brady's center. The redhead dude.
Oh, Ryan Jensen. Yeah.
Ryan Jensen, Mr. 15-yard penalty because he was a tough guy after the play was over with kind of play that used to crack me up every single time. Ryan's dad was tripping, and he and I were getting these little Twitter beefs. I'd be like, Dad, what happened? Like, your son keeps getting these like personal foul calls, roughing the or hitting after the player's over with. Like, that's not what we want. But somehow, some way, that was like the tough guy thing. So yeah, as long as there's no big, John getting some corny penalties, I'm all for his aggressive play. I'm all for the being smart about it and bring a little swagger back to the offensive line that was sorely missing.
Yeah, I agree. I think I said this, and I know a lot of fans don't like it. You don't need to have an all-pro guy at every single position. I know it would be nice, and after the considerably terrible play at that side of the ball this past season, you want to make sure you get somebody you can count on consistently. But the Ravens trust Simpson, and we've seen Simpson in the past. Has he been perfect? No, but I think for the price, it's not bad. I saw some people in the comments saying that there's some better talent for around the same price. Familiarity does play a role in this as well. He understands the Raven way, so to speak. So I think it's a decent grade. I'll give it a C as well, Kevin. I think that what he does for this team is yet to be determined, as they could also address the hole in the draft. So we shall definitely see. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll start grading these guys some more. A lot more guys coming in. Some people that Ravens fans don't know too much about, but we'll try and address it anyway here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. College basketball is nonstop. Big games, tight spreads, momentum swings every single night. From early tip-offs to late-night West Coast shootouts, there's always action on the board. And now FanDuel is giving you a way to turn that energy into even bigger potential wins with the college basketball parlay profit boost. You can build any college hoops parlay you want, rivalry games, ranked matchups, whatever fits your need. You can mix spreads, totals, and player props to match how you see the slate playing out. Then you can apply that profit boost and instantly bump up the potential payout. Go safe, go bold, ride with the team you've been following all season. It's your parlay, your style, now with more upside behind it. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, play your game. We're back here, Locked On Ravens Squad Show. We are here again twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, talking Ravens football all year long, including the offseason, which we are currently at. You can also catch Kevin on the Locked On Ravens podcast twice a day, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, giving you all that Ravens content that you need, because it's never truly an offseason with the Baltimore Ravens. So Kevin definitely has you covered with the content and news. The free agency period has been a whirlwind for Ravens fans, and some people may forget that there are other moves that were made for the Ravens this free agency period, not only Trey Hendrickson and the almost signing of Maxx Crosby. Some guys were brought back, most notably Chidobe Awuzie, who Q brought up a little bit ago. Chidobe Awuzie was playing opposite Nate Wiggins last year, had a couple of slip-ups in the final game of the season, but I think most people would say the pass rush is the main area of concern. I think this is a good signing. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is an awesome signing. He was one of the guys that I really wanted back in Baltimore. And for the deal they got him at, $5 million, I mean, that is a steal in my opinion. He played great cornerback for them last season and really was one of their consistent bright spots on a year that was pretty rough defensively for the majority of it. So I thought Chidobe was somebody who was going to get a much bigger deal than he did get. And, the market was interesting, I guess, this offseason for a couple of positions, and corner has been one of those. But at the end of the day, this is a win for the Ravens, and you now have him and Nate on the outside. I think, moving Marlon inside really will just be able to help you, or even just the safety for Marlon, I think would honestly probably be best, but I don't know if they're going to do that or not. And I trust Jesse Minter's vision here with this situation. And, Chidobe is someone who he's insurance. You can play him a big amount of snaps and that he can produce for you. The big thing with Chidobe is injuries, though, and he had a healthy season last year, but he has had years where it's on again, off again, really great year, and then all of a sudden he has a major injury. So hopefully he'll be able to put together back-to-back healthy and really good seasons here. But it's really cool that he wanted to come back, because I think that the signing worked out perfectly for everybody. Tennessee was still paying his salary. He wanted to go somewhere where he could compete and get snaps. He did that in Baltimore, even though the competing part really didn't come to fruition last season. But, now you have an opportunity, I think, in a much better system and a much better situation to compete. And you also get a little more money on top of it, which I think is pretty nice for him.
It's so interesting, because when they first brought in Jair Alexander, it was Chidobe was kind of like a secondary thought. Everybody was so high upon, Jair's personality and how he was presenting himself. And of course, anybody that's friends with Lamar or play with Lamar, they get a lot more attention. But obviously, we know that what happened was the Buffalo Bills abused him. And I think that's kind of what saved Kenyon Coleman's career, because mother of pearl, that first game, we were like, what in the world? However, Chidobe definitely, yes, consistently pulled up and showed out until that phantom injury with the, I guess, the kicking net in Cincinnati kind of turned things a little sideways for him. And unfortunately, in the Pittsburgh game, yes, he gave up that critical touchdown. Aaron Rodgers had no pass rush pressure. See, that's where Trey Hendrickson would come in and be a closer. I thought it would have been Maxx Crosby, but Maxx is still over there talking to, the ownership saying, hey, man, I'm still a Raider. I'm about to do this thing. Here I come. All right. Now I'm going to get another tattoo that has the Ravens bird head on it. I don't know where I'm going to put it on my body, but I might just go ahead and put it next to my kneecap, that little bird head, for a reminder of what could have, should have, but not really. And then meanwhile, Trey Hendrickson is going to be living large, sacking people in the AFC North and making the playoffs while we sitting here with Mendoza as a rookie quarterback, and I'm going home. Oh, yeah, that's why I forgot Chidobe Awuzie. He's on the Ravens, and yeah, he's going to be showing up, showing out. Whoop, whoop, let's did it.
Love it. I love it. I agree with it completely. I love the Chidobe Awuzie signing for sure. It is perfect. The Ravens don't need to spend too much money on that side of the ball. They got him, I think, $5 million 1-year deal, which is amazing. Great signing for the Ravens in that regard. I think that, the Ravens could inject some more talent there. The Ravens did lose 2 corners the last year's draft class prior to the start of the season. So those people figured to make an impact as well. We are waiting for TJ Tampa to make this big push as well. This is his 3rd season, so we'll see if it comes to fruition under the Jesse Minter system. Going to be very interesting. Again, remember, these players that we are talking about now may be totally different in terms of outlook with this new system in place. A little more organized chaos is what we're looking for, at least in my opinion, in the early goings of the season. Another player that was brought in, someone who knows a lot about Declan Doyle's offense, Durham Smythe, tight end, play for the Bears, blocking tight end, not the replacement for Isaiah Likely, more so for our guy, Charlie Kolar. What do you think, Kevin? How do you feel about this guy coming in and being the next blocking tight end for the Baltimore Ravens?
Yeah, well, it's familiarity. I mean, obviously with Declan Doyle part of it, yeah. And so I think that it makes sense for the Ravens. I mean, I would give it like a solid B, I think it's a solid move, and I think that with what Eric DeCosta was talking about on 105.7 The Fan, they're looking for 1, if not 2 more guys alongside Andrews and Smythe. And that obviously comes with the fact that Patrick Ricard is now in New York, and essentially the fullback position is getting eliminated pretty much. But Smythe can be a guy that you can put in the backfield and do a lot of really cool things with. So I'm excited for a lot of what he can do, because he just brings versatility and someone that you can essentially say, okay, if he's going to be the 1-for-1 Charlie Kolar / Patrick Ricard, so I guess maybe 1-for-2 Charlie Kolar. Wow, I'm trying to say Charlie Ricard and Patrick Kolar. No, it's Charlie Kolar and Patrick Ricard. If he's replacing essentially some of what each of those guys does, I think that gives you flexibility to say, hey, if you're looking for 2 tight ends, because I think now you can keep 4 guys at that position, you essentially were doing it anyway, just having Ricard as your 4th tight end, you can afford to bring in a guy like a David Njoku, who you can have as like a vet next to Andrews as a receiving weapon, and someone that, again, knows AFC North football, and I think will be a really solid signing. And you can go into the draft in a very, very deep tight end class. Like, there are a lot of guys in that like round 3 to 5 area, if it's not Sadiq, that just make a lot of sense. Like, it makes a lot of sense. So if you're not going to spend the first rounder on the big guy, you can go, and I think in rounds 3 through 5, really find an impact player. So if you're telling me like the Ravens tight end lineup week 1 would be Andrews, Njoku, got Smythe in there, and then a 4th round rookie, I feel really confident. So I'd give this one a B.
Well, I think what I've come to learn as a dad that has a son at the position, and there was a position that I really didn't take full note of until Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar were Ravens. I think that the details that Durham brings to the table is going to be very helpful for this Ravens ball club. And you're right, as far as Njoku, hopefully for him, he lives up to Sam's namesake and balls out. That's what we hoping for. That's that, what I'm saying? Like, we saw when he is healthy, we saw when he, gets his targets. I mean, that dude is a run after catch kind of a guy, but hopefully, Dr. Gill can show him what he needs to do to keep himself healthy and ready to go. And it won't be a Devonta Freeman type of situation, but it'll be one where he'll come in and be active and make plays. And, oh, wow, it won't be like, oh, he ran to the open field and only got 5 yards. Yeah, see, that's what we talk about. See, the anti-Freeman flow of Njoku would be great, but you also bring in Durham doing his thing. I'm not buying it as far as the rookie issue because basically from a bigger picture standpoint, they need D-line help. They need O-line help. They need safety help. They need receiver help. I'm not saying don't get a tight end, but from a special team standpoint is how that kid would make the ball club. I could easily see them keeping the 3 tight ends. They'd probably get some undrafted rookie free agent or maybe sign, whomever is out there on the street and then bring him in and kind of go from there. So I can easily see them not necessarily being high on the tight end list of drafting guys, and that would be cool by me.
Yeah, I mean, it's very enticing with those young tight ends in the middle rounds of this draft to take a stab at it. But I wouldn't mind a guy like David Njoku coming in. I didn't even mind a guy like Kadir Ismail. I saw him, perform live, and maybe I'm being a little biased, but the boy can play. So I mean, I'm just saying there's a lot of options of tight end out there besides Justin Isaiah Likely. And I think that the Ravens are one of the reasons why they were able to make this decision with only going with one of these tight ends is because there's definitely a surplus of talent surrounding the league, both in the incoming class and the free agency period, where we are still waiting to see if the Ravens make an additional move here at tight end. Another move before we close out this segment is that of the backup QB. Backup QB was a big one. The Ravens brought in Cooper Rush last year. Not so much with Cooper Rush. He looked pretty awful. Tyler Huntley came in and did what he had to do, and the Ravens rewarded him with a 2-year, $10 million deal. Kevin, how do you feel about the backup QB for Lamar Jackson once again being Snoop Huntley?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I mean, I'd give this one an A. Tyler Huntley deserved it. He deserved a payday, and I think the Ravens get him on a decently sized contract where it can go up to $11 million, but it really is $5 million. So I think that's a fair deal for both sides. I don't know what those incentives are, but yeah, I think it's a good contract where Huntley came back to Baltimore this time around as a different player. There are some things he struggled with early in his career, like some of the deep ball accuracy stuff and a few other things. And, he needed some time just to go and develop and, just be in the league. And he came back and he owns the Chicago Bears. That is his football team. That is Tyler Huntley's football team. Whenever he plays the Bears, he wins. And, he steps up for Lamar again against Green Bay and does his thing. And, did it help that Derrick Henry had, I guess, an okay game, right? Just okay. 4 touchdowns. That's no big deal, right? But again, he was making some throws and doing his thing. Like, this is the type of guy that you want to keep around because he obviously knows your system. He has grown in it and he's gone outside of it and grown as well. And I think that, the Tyler Huntley of 2020, probably doesn't get the deal that Tyler Huntley got. But the Tyler Huntley of 2026 and the growth that he has shown, that's a guy that I think I'm more than happy with being the backup in Baltimore. And honestly, as long as Lamar's in Baltimore, if Tyler wants to stick around, I'd be cool with that too, because I think that he's earned it. And I really like this one.
I think he honed in his game when he went down to Miami. I think that's where it would have been cool to see McDaniel be the offensive coordinator here. Obviously, water is wet. We're not worrying about it and looking back on it because we like Declan Doyle. We're going to be all in on him. So I'm not trying to cause any unnecessary drama. All I'm saying is I think he honed in his game, his play. Like Kevin said, he owns Chicago. But I like the way he gets rid of the football and processes things a little bit better now than when we saw in the first Chicago game. Yes, Derrick Henry was he just went off. Roly Poly Oli was thankfully benefiting from the depleted injury situation for the Packers D-line. But so what? You play on game day. You're active on game day. You're a pro. You're expected to show up unless you're Roly Poly Oli on other game days. But that game day, regardless of who was out there for the Packers, yes, they all did their thing, O-line as well as D-Hen. And at the same time, when it came to those critical, remember it was like a 3rd and 8, and he just threw a gorgeous timing route out to Zay Flowers. And I was like, yo, that is dope, because that's something where I think timing, rhythm, and everything, McDaniel, I think it forced him to be able to add that to his repertoire in his game. So, good for Tyler. I think if we're talking about a third guy that should be coming back, bruh, give me my boy Devin Leary. I think him and Declan's offense, it would be really good. I think that Eric, notice how I didn't say Eric, but Eric was getting a little ahead of himself with the Cooper Rush situation. Now I'll go back to Eric. Eric should go ahead and be like, you know what? I don't want to be Eric again. I already went on 105.7 The Fan. I already talked to people that I couldn't talk to before because of certain someone who's no longer on 107. So therefore, I know now I should get Devin Leary back in the building. He's not going to cost me much, and it'd be a good opportunity to have 3 quarterbacks that I know will trust the system, do the system, and live large and prosper. Go Devin Leary.
That is an interesting point. I didn't even think about that. Devin Leary's a guy who the Ravens really liked when they drafted him. He did not fit the offense that the Ravens had in place. And we talked about that scene with Cooper Rush, but he's a guy who showed flashes coming in with this timing-based offense. Could be a guy that the Ravens could bring in at least to try out during training camp. They don't need to really waste the draft capital to bring in a third guy. They have a guy they know that they can trust in Devin Leary to come in and be that third QB. That's a very interesting point. Very well done indeed, guys. As your grade, we got one more grade to do at the end of this break, but after that, we'll touch on who the Ravens could bring in. Additionally, we've only been a weekend to free agency, plenty of weeks ahead where the Ravens could build upon this roster. We'll talk about it next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. It's tax time. But for a lot of us, the old ways of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in the waiting room with stacked papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're going to get a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has an in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to TurboTax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Welcome back to Locked On Ravens Squad Show. We're here talking about the Ravens and their free agency period. First week is in the books. Lots of drama with the Maxx Crosby, Trey Hendrickson situation. But since then, the Ravens have done their best to fill the holes that were left by a couple of vacancies, left by guys like Isaiah Likely, Pat Ricard, and others. So the Ravens are going to do their due diligence here to bring in guys to fill what the Ravens want to do. Another notable guy is the safety position, and a guy by the name of Jalen Hawkins comes in with a 2-year, $10 million deal. Hopes to be that third safety that was occupied by Alohi Gilman and Darius Washington, who left via free agency as well. Kevin, what are your thoughts about this guy coming in and being that third safety alongside Malachi Starks and Cal Hamilton?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good. Obviously, he had 4 interceptions last year, so he did display that ball hawking ability. And he's a guy that I think just has a feel for the game. So the big thing for him is, being able to have Kyle Hamilton roam around and move around and giving defenses different looks as long as the Ravens can free up Kyle Hamilton, that's the big thing. And so once you lose Darius Washington, you lose Alohi Gilman, you need somebody to step into that role. And, a lot of Patriots fans wanted Hawkins back. That's kind of one of my like barometers in terms of how I kind of, if like I don't know too much about a guy at first, I kind of look at and say, all right, how's this fan base reacting to this guy leaving? And it feels like a lot of New England wanted him back in the Patriots colors. So I am excited for him to come in. I don't think he's going to be like this Pro Bowl type of guy, but I think he can be one of these sneaky additions that you kind of look at like, who's the glue holding this together, like one of those underrated pieces. And it could very well be Jalen Hawkins who earns that role. So, I mean, I'll give it a B. Like, I think it's a solid move for him. It's not like the best move I've ever seen in my life, but you had a need there. You lost two guys and you addressed it.
Jalen has done something that none of the Ravens on the current roster has done. That's playing the big game. Super Bowl. What? Say something. Huh? Couldn't do it. Yeah. Y'all were watching too. Y'all had your popcorn out like, oh my God, look at homeboy, Jalen. He's just doing his thing. Hawkins, hawking the ball. Ooh, yo, oh my God. Oh, y'all lost. Okay, never mind. But he did do what he needed to do. They played strong on the road. They were, had some crazy win streak when it came to stringing together road wins. Their defense was just phenomenal. Vrabel and them did their thing as far as getting guys to play into their position. So I think his winning mindset is what stands out to me. The fact that he understands what it takes, and that's what we're looking for. We're not just looking for dudes just to come on in here and be Jair Alexander and be training camp dude, and then all of a sudden miss time in training camp, and then all of a sudden be like, oh my God, he's going to, nope, he retired. We want a guy that is hungry to finish the deal. And I think this fits what Jesse Minter needs to have happen for Anthony Weaver's defense during the week and him calling the plays during the weekend, being ready to go and balling out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've always wanted to see Kyle Hamilton be in the back end more than usual, considering that the pass rush is so terrible. He was in the middle of that, line of scrimmage a lot, more so than I would like. But when you're as good as Kyle Hamilton is, you got to use him to the best of your ability. I'm interested to see if the Ravens really envision him being this pass rush hybrid specialist when they drafted him. He is, a lanky guy, 6'4", safety, can move better than most safeties out there. It's great to have him on your team. He is the chess piece that Jesse Minter is looking forward to working with, I'm sure. Let's move on to what this Ravens team needs to do moving forward. They've made some moves, not enough in a lot of Ravens fans' opinions, including mine. What do you think the Ravens could do moving forward, Kevin, to improve upon this football team? Is there a roster spot in general you want to see them address, or a player you see out there that could be ripe for the picking?
Well, I saw Zemo mention it, so I'll do this first before I get into the rest of my answer. Bring Calais Campbell back, man. Just do it. Just do it. Just bring Calais Campbell back, all right? He's still playing at a high level, even though he is up there, and I mean up there in age. But I'm telling you, like, he's someone that I think can provide you just, at the very minimum, like just a cheap depth piece, but someone that I think can make an impact for you. You want to have guys on the D-line and guys available, regardless of if Nanu Madubuike comes back or not, because you want to have just a plan for it either way. So I think Campbell would be really good. You can pair him with a guy in the draft. Doesn't look like they're going to cut Broderick Washington, at least not this time. So I guess he's still going to be on the roster. We'll have to figure out that whole situation. But obviously, O-line is still important. I think they need to bring in at least one more veteran. I like Corey Bullock and I like Emory Jones, but we can't be in the same situation here that we were last year for Baltimore, which is handing these jobs off to young guys without having competition. Where if John Simpson is going to be your starting left guard, you need to bring in competition for him and guys that can push these guys to win these jobs. Where if you bring in the right competition, and if Corey Bullock wins that center job, and if Emory Jones wins that right guard job, then great. They did it. They earned it. But we didn't see that last season. And again, there is some of the risk, I guess, of throwing young guys out there like we did see last season. I do think you have to bring in a vet wide receiver, whether that is just bringing back DeAndre Hopkins, which I know we're going to get to, and I'm going to get to tomorrow as well. And, maybe that's a Marquise Brown. I don't know. I mean, I personally would prefer D-Hop over Marquise Brown, but then I think you also can add another guy in the draft, whether that's at 14 or somewhere else. I think second and third rounds have a lot of intriguing players in that range as well that can make an impact for you. And then other than that, I mean, you've addressed corner with Joby Awuzie, you've addressed safety with Hawkins, tight end. I would be totally cool with Njoku if that's what they decide to do, but I have a feeling they're just going to draft 2 guys in the mid rounds because this draft class is so deep at the tight end spot. So I would just really just continue to focus on the offensive line and, just work on the trenches. That's really what I would say. I think that you have opportunity to bring in one more edge guy as well, because obviously they were looking at adding both Crosby and Hendrickson. So even if it's just a lesser option than a Crosby would be, which it is going to be because there aren't a lot of players in this league better than Crosby. Well, I think that's still really good for you because then you would have 4 guys and then the 5th guy you could add in the draft. So there are a lot of avenues, but just work on those trenches and keep up the, if it is a full court press, keep up that full court press on getting guys in the building to help you win.
Yeah, it would be foolish to say they're done, that everything is settled in. It doesn't make any sense. So I think, yes, if it is a Calais Campbell that can come in and provide that one last time push type flow, great. I think big picture wise, when you look at what the Ravens are doing, sure, there are the Bullocks, the Emory Joneses of the world. Hopefully Emory, whatever his shoulder is, it ain't going to hamper him. I just think bigger picture draft, again, it is the trenches. No, you don't necessarily have to rely upon Matabike. I wouldn't. I know everybody is very high on him, but I would just say let's put caution to the wind until we know really what is what. Slamming a med ball down is one thing, but really going out there and going up against another human, the physics of it all, you better be on point. So yeah, there's just some things there that I still would pause on, and mentally, yes, the trenches. It's all about that. Receiver, bring up a good point as far as Hollywood Brown. There is that connection there, but I also just feel like that bigger target 50-50 ball guy would work. Although Declan's offense, it can give Hollywood a chance to thrive, but in what ways would you look at him when it came to Tez Walker? Are you taking reps away from Tez? I think this is Tez offseason to step up and say, I am that guy. Yeah, I really believe that. And I think that, whether we get into the weeds on D-Hop, that's fine. I think he's a phenomenal, talented 50-50 ball type player. But I guess I'm pro Tez when it comes to not necessarily having to go out of your way to get a free agent receiver other than D-Hop.
Yeah, I see where you're going with it. I think that there's a lot of options for sure. Offensive line needs to be the target. I think people are kind of slipping away from the must attack the trenches as far as fan bases are concerned. I'm not sure the Ravens are, but it seems like the focus is kind of leave that trenches narrative, and I think that's a mistake. The trenches were terrible last year, and the Ravens need to find a way to make sure that doesn't happen in 2026 first before addressing these skill positions like wide receiver, like tight end, like corner, like pass rusher even. I think with the Trey Hendrickson move, this is really about the trenches. And I agree with you, Q. I wouldn't put all my eggs in an Matabike basket. Haven't heard that it's for sure he's coming back. So until then, you need to be a part B type of guy if you're Eric DeCosta, similar to the Maxx Crosby situation. If that doesn't work out, how do we pivot? The Ravens need to be able to pivot from Matabike if he's not able to go in 2026. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will touch on a special wide receiver that was once a Raven, didn't have the type of year that he thought he'd have, but it'll be very interesting to talk about what he meant during his little, I won't say rant, but his tweet on social media earlier today. This is coming up next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Welcome back to the Locked On Ravens Squad show. Again, we're here twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, talking Ravens football with you all year long, including the offseason. Again, we are currently smack dab in the middle of it, so you'll be sure to see us every single week, twice a week even, talking Ravens football. You can also catch Kevin on the Locked On Ravens podcast twice a day, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, talking Ravens football. The content will not stop because the news doesn't seem to want to stop with the Ravens in regards to their offseason moves. It feels like we're still in the middle of the season with all the stuff we're getting from the Ravens regarding Ravens football. The Maxx Crosby trade was just unbelievable. If you looked at Kevin, he didn't get a lot of sleep. He hasn't got plenty of sleep, none whatsoever. So shout out to Kevin for the work that he does, and be sure to tune in for all of his hard work. Now, the Ravens had a special receiver, DeAndre Hopkins, who we were really excited about, by the way. Everybody was excited about DeAndre Hopkins coming in last year and being that guy. He showed flashes of being the guy that we thought he'd be in Baltimore, but for whatever reason, he didn't really get the opportunities that we thought he'd get. Now, a lot of this is because, honestly, the whole offense as a whole regressed. Not only the offense, but the defensive side of the ball as well. Our buddy Nick Mason was on Twitter today and said, if the Ravens are on market for a veteran wide receiver, which I suspect they are, they should do a deal to bring DeAndre Hopkins back to Baltimore. And he showed a play of Hopkins making a great catch during that week 1 game. And then DeAndre Hopkins had something to say about it. He said, how many times after this do you think I was using the red zone? When targeted, I'm still one of the most productive, but never complain with my snaps and never will. Facts. Now, that tweet was later on deleted, but the message was sent. And it is known now that D-Hop was not too happy with his utilage here during his time in Baltimore. Kevin, I know you're going to talk about it on your show on morning on 6 a.m., so I don't want to take too much of the thunder away, but this is worth discussion for sure. What are your thoughts about what D-Hop had to say?
Yeah, no, it's a good conversation to have, and I'm going to dive into a lot more detail on it tomorrow, because I think there's like a ton to talk about with it. But, long story short here is, he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all. We were saying it all year. Yeah, it's like DeAndre Hopkins needs to be on the field more. He's good for at least 1 or 2 big plays a game. And I don't know, like it's some of the stuff that we had heard with John Harbaugh all year. It's like, he's saying all the right things about D-Hop, and he's saying, I love D-Hop. He's one of my favorite players ever I've had. Got to get on the ball more. And then it never happened. And, I think that D-Hop has made it very clear that he is, at least early in the offseason, he said he was, implied that he was open to a reunion, said he liked playing with Lamar, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't blame him if he didn't like his situation last year. I don't at all. And, to his credit, he was extremely professional about it. He never got up there and, demanded the ball more or said, I want the ball. You got to give me the ball. And just, through tantrums, he was very professional. And I give him a lot of credit because it's not easy, when you can provide something and you're not getting the opportunity to do it. Yeah. I'd be frustrated. So, with him, I'm glad that he spoke on it because I think he deserves to, if we're being honest. It was honestly a bit of malpractice with how he was used last season, considering the impact that he gave them from the jump. And I think that it kind of speaks to who he is as a player and a person, kind of how he handled the situation. And that's in a good way, obviously, with everything that he could have done, but didn't. He had every right to be frustrated and complain and say, I'm doing this for the team and you're not letting me get more opportunities. But it shows his character. And I am glad that he said something because I think he's kind of been tiptoeing around it for a little bit and kind of implying stuff and hinting at stuff. But he deserved to just kind of put it all out there. And I'm sure he didn't even put it all out there, but, essentially say it in the most polite way that he could, given the circumstances. So, I'm team D-Hop, obviously, and Q knows this because we've been talking about D-Hop coming on the Ravens for like 4 years together. So it finally happened, and I am disappointed with how his year ended up because I thought that he gave them a lot of good moments, but he wasn't really afforded the opportunity to consistently build on it throughout the year.
It's so interesting when I go into the locker room. You get a chance to see right after a game what the energy is. I know a couple of times after some real heartbreaking losses, you would see guys just sitting by their locker in disbelief. When things were really bad, when they were 1-5, you thought yes. the sky is falling and all that. And one guy that was more than a couple of times after games consulting, being available, and in particular to number 8 was D-Hop. So D-Hop and Lamar, as well as technically Derrick Henry, I mean, it was like the meeting of the minds, and they would sit there and, just break bread on what they saw, didn't see. And it was like these detailed back and forths. So I think from that aspect of his statement, it was more directed towards, in my opinion, Todd Monken and the way he would call games. One moment he would have a good rhythm. The next moment he would be out of rhythm. And that quote unquote being out of rhythm, it affected guys like D-Hop, guys like Bateman, guys like Tez Walker. And he would get into this rut of play calling. And even he, admitted he could have done a better job. So I think that's where that tweet comes from. But yeah, to your point, KO, he wasn't about to go ahead and make it just linger out there and just be, crazy, I'm a soldier type of a tweet. But it was more along the lines of, hey, I'm gonna let y'all know when I was out there, I was available, I was productive. I don't mind if we run this thing back. And I think, is he one of those cases where it's a later in the offseason type of scenario you bring him back, which is what I could see happening? That's something that an Eric DeCosta would do and has done, where you bring a veteran in that you really, really need, and then the veteran that not that you don't need, but it's not like, oh my gosh, this is so high priority, but you would look at some of the young players and how they adapted and adjusted. We've seen that on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen that on the offensive side of the ball. Guys like Jadeveon Clowney, the KVNs of the world, where you have these veterans that they know what they're doing, but you kind of want to see what the young guys look like in the offseason without the looming pressure of that veteran in the locker room. So I think that's where this could be headed. Maybe it's just a shot across the bow, be like, look, I'm here. What's up, fellas? Don't get it twisted. Okay, go ahead, carry on. Do what you got to do as far as the draft. Do what you got to do as far as your offseason. But at some point in time, holla at your boy, because I still got a lot of ball left in me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, D-Hop was underutilized. Let's get it out of the way. He had 39 targets on the year, 22 receptions, 330 yards, and only 2 touchdowns. That's almost unacceptable, to the point of wondering what actually was going down during those meetings, because he is a talent. He was their third wide receiver. And your third wide receiver only has 330 yards and 39 targets. That tells me a lot about what went down with this offense this year. I mean, it was from top to bottom a disaster 2025. And I think that Hopkins deserves a chance to go out at least with a better result stats-wise than what happened in 2025. So I think he could be a guy that could come back. And Q, you made an excellent point. Maybe not bring him in so early in the offseason. You don't want these young guys to have that looming pressure of a living legend that is DeAndre Hopkins trying to steal snaps from you to get back in the swing of things. Give these young guys a chance to come in there, learn the system, learn that rapport with Lamar Jackson, and then when the time is right, bring DeAndre Hopkins in to round out that receiver room. He's not the only receiver that has been kind of pointed towards the Ravens. Large man who eats cheese. Love that name, by the way. Says Devontae Adams. The A.J. Brown rumors to L.A. are ramping up. I like the Devontae Adams move. I think a lot of people were kind of knocking Devontae Adams, and he's a phenomenal receiver. I think we watched that Rams game last year, and he could have really diced up this Ravens defense, but anybody could have diced up this Ravens defense last year. But notwithstanding, Devontae Adams still a phenomenal route runner, still perfect for a team looking for another wide receiver. Kevin, do you think Devontae Adams could be a potential guy to come in and be that receiver for the Ravens in the future?
I would love it. I think that, when you talk about veteran receivers, and look, I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is the typical, the Ravens bring in the guy that's like, he's 30 whatever years old. And He's already on the tail end of his career. I don't think Davante Adams is on the tail end of his career. He's a really good player still. And, looking at the contract again, I don't know how that would work. I mean, he still has the year left on his contract. It's an $18 million base salary. So I don't know if you would trade for him and extend him or, how that would work. I mean, the Ravens do have cap space to absorb. So, it's not like they are in a world where they can't do that. I mean, I'd be cool with it, especially if it doesn't come with a lot of draft capital. Now, again, this does hinge on AJ Brown actually going out to Los Angeles. I don't think the Rams, who are in win now mode with Matthew Stafford, would just trade away Davante Adams for a 4th round pick just to do it. So you're going to have to, have this trade be contingent on AJ Brown actually coming to the Rams. But if it does happen, I mean, I think it'd be a great move for him. He's a vet. He's talked about Lamar before really glowingly. And if that's the move, I would feel very good about this group, that especially that trio, or even, you had Tez in there, make it 4 of Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Davante Adams, and Tez Walker. That would be a very strong group. And it's one of those moves that, like, you can kind of see happening if the other order of operations stuff gets in order first.
If it is Davante Adams, I think from this point forward, KO needs to banish the name Devonta Freeman from his lexicon, because Davante Adams is a baller. Like, when it comes to contested catches, middle of field, deep ball, sideline, red zone, back to the wall, it doesn't matter. That dude can make plays, period. End of discussion. Press coverage, off coverage. I'm watching the divisional round of the playoffs and watching the Bears and the Rams go at it. And when there was a play that critically needed to be made, Adams showed up. I mean, that dude just shows up, period. End of discussion. Contested catches, wide open, clutch, first quarter, fourth quarter, right before the half. Like, he is a complete elite upper tier wide receiver. Did he have kind of, a boring game, a game where he kind of checked out when he was here in Baltimore, when the Rams came into town? Yes. They offensively kind of did, and defensively, Jared Verse and company showed up against the Fa'aleles of the world. But my point is this, that you get him on the team, there is a different molecule that is circulating within the offensive room. And I wouldn't mind if, and this is, I am pro Bateman. You get Adams, go ahead, ship Bateman off so you can go ahead and get an Adams. I am full on okay with that. AJ Brown, I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Hey, I get it. All that, blah, blah, blah. Davante Adams.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was just going to say, if I had to choose between Davante Adams and AJ Brown, give me Davante Adams. I mean, that boy is something special. He can do it all. Every single thing you ask for a receiver, he can do. And his get off at the line of scrimmage, his ability to gain separation, regardless of what coverage the corner has him in, it's just something special. So I think it will be fantastic. And to Q's point, you might need to get on with Bateman. If that's the case, there'll be too much money on it. And then you have to worry about who's the slot guy, who's the X guy. And Bateman needs another opportunity out there. Again, I'm a Bateman guy just as Q is. I think Bateman will do well in this offense. But if you're looking to upgrade the position, go with Davante, Zay Flowers, and bring in Tez or DeAndre Hopkins. You got yourself a nice little receiver group to pair with Lamar Jackson. Lamar will finally get that number 1 receiver that everybody's clamoring for. And we can move forward, hopefully, with the Ravens in 2026 with a potent offense that defenses would fear for sure. That is going to do it for us here at the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Again, I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're over on YouTube. Make sure you hit us with the 5 stars and give us all the love and adulations via comments wherever you get your podcast. Tell a friend about us. Tell a friend that we're here Monday and Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. talking Ravens football. Be sure to give them that shout out. Give us that shout out, and we much appreciate it. Z Mara, I see you with the squad comment. Appreciate you, Z. Always on every single show, no matter what. I see a lot of other familiar faces on the show, no matter what. So I appreciate that. So for myself, Kevin, and Q, thank you guys so much for joining us on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, and we will see you on Wednesday.